There is a kind of exhaustion that sleep cannot fix. You lie awake at night, and your mind replays a conversation from 3 years ago. You rehearse arguments with people who aren't in the room. You carry the weight of opinions from people who have already forgotten your name. You are tired, but not because you have done too much. You are tired because you have been holding on to too much. Holding on to what people think of you. Holding on to how things were supposed to turn out. Holding on to old wounds, old versions of yourself, old expectations that no longer fit the person you have become. 2,000 years ago, a Roman emperor named Marcus Aurelius sat alone in his tent at the edge of a freezing battlefield, and by candlelight he wrote a single idea to himself, over and over, in different words. The idea was this: almost nothing that disturbs you comes from the world. It comes from your grip on the world. Tonight, we are going to loosen that grip, not by fighting harder, not by controlling more, but by learning the one skill the Stoics believed separated a free mind from a prisoner's mind, the art of letting go. By the end of this video, you will understand why the strongest people are not the ones who hold on the tightest, but the ones who know exactly what to release. And you will have a practice you can use tonight, before you fall asleep, to set down the weight you have been carrying for years. So find somewhere quiet, breathe, and let's begin. Imagine you are carrying a stone. At first it is small. You picked it up years ago. Maybe it was a harsh word from a parent, a betrayal by a friend, a failure you never forgave yourself for. It felt important to carry. It felt like proof of something. So you kept it. And over the years you picked up more. A grudge here, a regret there, the memory of who wronged you, the fear of who might, the endless, invisible ballad of what other people think you should be. Now the stone is a boulder, and you have carried it so long that you no longer feel it as a burden. You feel it as yourself. You have confused the weight with your identity. This is the trap the Stoics understood better than almost anyone. They noticed that human beings do not suffer from events nearly as much as they suffer from their attachment to events. Epictetus, a man who was born a slave and spent years in chains, said something that should stop you cold. It is not the thing that disturbs you. It is your judgment about the thing. Think about that for a moment. The event is over. The person is gone. The failure happened years ago. None of it exists anymore, except in one place. Inside your mind. You are the one keeping it alive. You are the one feeding it, night after night, giving it your attention, your energy, your peace. The past cannot hold on to you. Only you can hold on to the past. And here is the part almost no one wants to hear. You were never carrying the stone because you had to. You were carrying it because, somewhere deep down, you believed that putting it down would mean the pain didn't matter, that letting go would mean forgetting, that release would mean you lost. But the Stoics saw it differently. To them, letting go was not surrender. Letting go was the highest form of strength a human being could reach. If you understand nothing else from this video, understand this. There is a single line that runs through your entire life. On one side of that line is everything you control. On the other side is everything you do not. And nearly all human suffering comes from standing on the wrong side, reaching desperately for things that were never ours to hold. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control, and it is the foundation of everything. So let's be precise. What is actually on your side of the line? Your choices, your effort, your response, the way you treat people, the standards you hold yourself to, the thoughts you choose to entertain, and the ones you choose to release. That is it. That is the entire territory of your power. It is smaller than you think, and it is more than enough. And what is on the other side? The weather, the economy, the past, other people's opinions, other people's choices, whether you are loved back, whether your work is recognized, whether the outcome you prayed for actually arrives. Look at that list again. Look at how much of your daily anxiety lives entirely on the wrong side of the line. You cannot control whether someone respects you, only whether you act with integrity. You cannot control whether you get the job, only how well you prepare. You cannot control what people say about you when you leave the room, only whether you gave them a reason to say something kind. Epictetus taught his students to sort every single worry into one of these two bins. Is this in my control? Then act. Is this not in my control? Then release it. Most people spend their lives doing the exact opposite. They pour their energy into the things they cannot control, the outcomes, the opinions, the past, and they neglect the one thing they can, their own response. They try to control the storm, and they abandon the ship. The art of letting go begins the moment you draw that line honestly. When something disturbs you, you no longer ask, "How do I fix this?" You ask a better question first. Is this even mine to carry? And more often than you would ever guess, the answer is no. That single question, "Is this mine to carry?" is the beginning of freedom, because the moment you realize something was never yours, you no longer have to hold it. You get to set it down, not because you gave up, but because it was never in your hands to begin with. Now we come to the heaviest stone most people carry, the opinions of others. You know this weight intimately. It is the reason you rehearse conversations before they happen. It is the reason a single look from a stranger can ruin your afternoon. It is the reason you have said yes when every part of you was screaming no. Somewhere along the way, you handed the keys to your peace to people who were never qualified to drive. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the known world, a man who could have anything and command anyone, wrote this reminder to himself. How strange that we love ourselves above all others, yet we value the opinion of others above our own. Sit with that. The Emperor of Rome had to remind himself not to live for the approval of the crowd. So do not feel weak that you struggle with it. It is the oldest chain there is. Here is what the Stoics understood. The opinions others hold of you are formed inside their minds, shaped by their fears, their history, their insecurities, on a day you know nothing about. Their judgment of you says almost nothing about who you are. It says everything about where they are standing. When someone criticizes you, you have a choice in that moment, a choice that belongs entirely to you. You can pick up their words and carry them for years, or you can look at the words honestly, keep what is true and useful, and let the rest fall to the ground where it belongs. If the criticism is true, it is a gift. Use it. Grow. If the criticism is false, it is not yours. Why would you carry a stone that belongs to someone else? There is a freedom that arrives, and I want you to imagine it, the day you truly stop needing to be understood by everyone. The day you accept that some people will misread you no matter how clearly you speak, that some will dislike you for reasons that have nothing to do with you, that you could be the ripest, sweetest fruit in the world, and there will still be people who simply do not like the taste. You cannot be everyone's cup of tea, and the exhausting attempt to be is the very thing keeping you from becoming who you actually are. So let them think what they think, let them talk, let them misunderstand, let them walk away if they must. The moment you stop performing for the approval of the crowd is the moment you meet yourself for the first time, and you may find, standing there in the quiet, that the person you spent your whole life afraid to be was the only one worth becoming. There is a version of you that lives in the past, and it is starving your present to keep itself alive. Every time you replay the mistake, you feed it. Every time you rehearse the argument you already lost, you feed it. Every time you say, "If only, I should have, why didn't I?" you pour today's energy into a moment that no longer exists. The Stoics were relentless about this. Seneca, one of the wealthiest and most influential men in Rome, wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And nowhere is this more true than with the past. The event lasted a moment. The suffering can last a lifetime, but only because we choose to reopen the wound each day and call it memory. Here is the hard truth. You cannot change a single thing that has already happened. Not one word, not one choice. The past is the most fixed, most finished, most completely unchangeable thing in the entire universe. And yet it is the thing people fight the hardest, wishing it were different, arguing with what already is. Think of how absurd that is. You would never stand at the edge of the ocean and scream at the tide for coming in. You would never rage at the sun for setting. And yet every day people wage war against events that are just as impossible to move. The Stoics offered a different relationship with the past, not to forget it. Forgetting is not the goal, and it isn't even possible, but to release your grip on it, to let it be what it was, a teacher, not a jailer. Your past is not here to be relived. It is here to be learned from, and then laid down. Ask yourself honestly, what did that pain teach you? What did the failure make possible? Who did you become because the thing you wanted so badly did not work out? Look closely, and you will almost always find that the road you cursed was the road that carried you here. The regret you have been carrying was, at the time, the best decision you could make with the person you were and the knowledge you had. You judge your past self with the eyes of who you are now, but your past self did not have those eyes. Forgive them. They were doing the best they could in the dark. Let the old version of you rest. He got you here. She got you here. Now let them go, with gratitude, so you can finally walk forward without dragging the whole weight of who you used to be. Here is one of the most beautiful ideas the Stoics ever gave us, and almost no one lives by it. Do everything in your power, and then release your grip on the result. Picture an archer. She trains for years. She studies the wind, steadies her breath, aligns her body with total precision. She controls everything within her control, and then she lets the arrow fly. But here is the wisdom. The instant that arrow leaves the bow, it is no longer hers. A sudden gust of wind, a shift she could never have predicted. These belong to the world now, not to her. If she measures her worth by whether it hits the center, she has bound her peace to something she can no longer touch. The Stoics said, "Judge yourself by the quality of your aim, not by where the arrow lands." This changes everything about how you live. It means you can pour your whole heart into your work and stay free. You give the effort, the preparation, the honesty, the care. That is yours. But the outcome, whether it is praised, whether it succeeds, whether the world responds the way you hoped, that was never yours to command. Most people do this backwards. They attach their entire sense of self to results they cannot control, and so they live at the mercy of luck, timing, and other people's choices. They win and feel like gods. They lose and feel like nothing. Their inner weather is decided by forces outside them, and they never know a single peaceful day. But the person who has let go of outcomes has found something unshakable. They can fail without being destroyed, because they measure themselves by their effort and their character, and those never leave. They can be rejected 100 times and step forward the 101st, because their worth was never on the table to begin with. Do the work as if the result depends on you, and accept the result as if it never did. That is not passivity. That is the deepest kind of courage there is, to give everything and demand nothing in return. There is a phrase at the very heart of Stoic wisdom, amor fati. It means, love your fate. Not tolerate it, not survive it, love it. This is the hardest teaching, so let's be honest about what it asks. It does not ask you to pretend that painful things are good. It does not ask you to smile through grief or lie about loss. It asks something subtler and far more powerful. It asks you to stop fighting the fact that the thing happened at all, because underneath most of your suffering is a quiet, constant argument with reality. This should not have happened. This is not fair. It was supposed to be different, and every hour you spend in that argument is an hour spent trying to move a mountain with your bare hands. The mountain does not move. You only exhaust yourself against it. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the obstacle in the path becomes the path. What stands in the way becomes the way. The Stoics did not see hardship as an interruption of life. They saw it as the raw material of life, the very thing on which a strong character is built. The fire does not destroy the gold. The fire is how the gold is purified. So the practice of amor fati is this. Whatever has already happened, whatever cannot be changed, you stop wishing it were otherwise. You accept it so completely that you begin to ask a new question. Not why did this happen to me, but what does this make possible? What is this here to teach? Who could I become because of this, that I never could have become without it? The person who masters this becomes almost impossible to defeat. Because you cannot break someone who has decided to use everything. Take away their comfort, and they grow stronger. Take away their plan, and they find a better one. Give them a storm, and they learn to sail. You do not have to like everything that happens to you, but when it is finished, and it cannot be undone, you have a choice. You can spend your life at war with what already is, or you can make peace with reality, take what it offers, and turn even your wounds into wisdom. Let go of the life you thought you were supposed to have, and begin, at last, to live the one that is actually in front of you. Beneath every stone we have talked about tonight lies one final weight: the ego. The part of you that needs to be right, needs to be seen, needs to win, needs to protect itself at all costs. The ego is the reason a small insult can start a long war. It is the reason we defend positions we secretly know are wrong. It is the reason we cling to being right instead of being at peace. The Stoics practice something radical for people of their status: humility. Not weakness, not self-hatred, but the quiet strength of a person who no longer needs to be impressive because they are no longer performing for anyone. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, and he reminded himself daily that he was a small and temporary thing, one brief life among countless others, made of the same dust as everyone else, headed for the same silence. Far from making him miserable, this set him free. When you remember how small you are, you stop taking your own bruised pride so seriously. Letting go of ego means you can be corrected without being crushed. You can lose an argument and feel lighter, not smaller. You can let someone else have the last word, the credit, the win, because your peace was never for sale in that transaction to begin with. The person who has nothing to prove is the freest person in any room. So the next time you feel that hot rise of needing to defend yourself, needing to be right, needing to win, pause. Ask whether this is worth your peace. Ask whether the version of you that wins this argument is a version of you that you actually respect. Often, the strongest thing you can do is unclench the fist. Let it go. Walk away with your calm intact. That is not losing. That is the only kind of winning that lasts. Wisdom you do not practice is just decoration. So let me give you something real. Something you can do tonight and every night. The Stoics ended each day with a quiet review, not to punish themselves, to release the day. You can do the same, in 3 steps. First, name what you are carrying. Before you sleep, ask, what is sitting on my chest right now? Say it plainly. A conversation, a worry, a regret. Name it honestly, without dressing it up. Second, sort it across the line. Take that thing and ask the one question that decides everything. Is this in my control? If it is, decide the one small action you will take tomorrow, and then rest. If it is not, say to yourself, clearly, this is not mine to carry, and release it. Not forever, maybe, just for tonight. Letting go is not one grand event. It is a small choice you make again and again. Third, find one thing to be grateful for. End on what the day gave you, not what it took. Even a hard day gave you something. A lesson, a moment, a breath. Gratitude is the quiet opposite of grasping. You cannot clench your fist and open your hand at the same time. Do this for 1 week, and you will feel the difference. Do it for a month, and the people around you will feel it too. Do it for a year, and you will become a different kind of person entirely. Someone the storms of life pass through, instead of pile up on. You are not trying to become someone who never feels anything. You are becoming someone who no longer holds on to everything. So let's return to where we began. You were carrying a stone. You have carried it so long you forgot you were allowed to put it down. But now you know the truth the Stoics spent their lives protecting. That almost nothing that weighs on you was ever really yours to hold. Not the opinions of others. Not the finished past. Not the outcomes beyond your reach. Not the war with what has already happened. Not even the fragile need of the ego to win. All of it, you can set down, not because you are weak, because you are finally strong enough to stop pretending you were ever meant to carry it. The freedom the Stoics promised was never freedom from life. It was freedom within it. The ability to move through a chaotic, uncontrollable world with an open hand instead of a clenched fist. To hold what is yours lightly, and to release everything else without a fight. Tonight, before you sleep, set one thing down. Just one. The smallest stone you can find. Say to yourself, this is not mine to carry, and feel, even slightly, how much lighter you become. Then do it again tomorrow, and the day after, because a free mind is not built in a single night. It is built one release at a time. You have carried enough. It is time to let it go.